Statistics South Africa's latest quarterly labour force survey suggests that our unemployment rate has cooled, lowered by 1.3 percentage points to 31.9% in the third quarter. 248,000 people won jobs over the period. The number of people who are employed increased in 8 provinces. The only one where they didn't was in the Eastern Cape. The largest job gains were registered in construction, community and social services and trade over the quarter. Job losses were registered in manufacturing, finance and utilities. The largest employment gains were recorded in the Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. The unemployment rate, therefore, sat at 31.9% in the fourth quarter of 2025.
We will have seen that in quarter 4, 2024, we gained 132,000 jobs. In the first quarter this year, 2025, we lost 291,000 jobs. 19,000 jobs were gained in the second quarter of 2025, and indeed, 248,000 jobs were gained in the quarter that we are reporting on, that is quarter 3 of 2025. Now, when we look at those that are outside the labor force, we are saying that they increased by 239,000. Of course, we see that the majority of them were students, sitting at about 35.8%. having gone down by 0.8 of a percentage point. And of course, we are saying that the discouraged work seekers sitting at 20.6% of those outside the labor force, having gone down by 0.1 of a percentage point.
We're underway at the Global South Academic Forum, conversations around our place in the world, particularly when we can see how the US is changing, how the West is no longer as dominant as it once was. One of the people at the forum in Shanghai is Professor Busani Ngcaweni, the director at the Center for Public Policy and African Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Prof, good day to you there. We can all see the world order is changing. What should South Africa be aiming for in this new order? How should we be positioning ourselves?
Thanks, David, for the invitation. South Africa, like many other countries in the Global South, need to prepare themselves in very basic ways. Number one, you must build human capabilities in your own countries in order to have young people, in particular, who've got advanced manufacturing skills and other type of vocational skills and capabilities that enables them to participate in the labor market. Secondly, we have to build dynamic bureaucracies that are able to manage both domestic as well as global contradictions, such that if you have to manage and negotiate trade deals, you must have skilled bureaucrats, skilled politicians who are able to manage this new era. Because for an example, you now have to trade with countries you might never have traded with them before. You need to study those countries, understand the cultures in those countries, understand the markets in those countries, and have trade arrangements that are mutually beneficial for you as South Africa, for the Global South countries, and these new countries that you are trading with. But it also means having the ability to manage your traditional partners, like Global North partners, as it were, because there are dynamics that are changing there, and they are changing very fast. The idea of consolidating solidarity in the Global South does not mean negating relations with the Global North, but it means being able to renegotiate these arrangements, renegotiate the trade and other deals that we have with countries in the Global North. Interestingly, we see that as a movement in the Global South, that everybody agrees that we've got to trade with each other more. We have to have people-to-people exchange, in the Global South more than we did in the past. But here is one significant point, Stephen, that I've noticed from all the statements emerging from the Global South capitals, that these relationships being forged are about human development, are about solidarity, and they're not about hegemony. Whereas in the Global North, what we have seen over the past 50 years or so is that hegemony is being used to bring people into line. Whereas the new mood that is prevailing in the Global South is about solidarity, strengthening people-to-people relations, is also about mutual respect.
So, I mean, I accept all of that. The sort of global north era, if I can call it that, too soon to call it that, of course. But if we go back to the end of the Second World War, and particularly Europe and parts of Asia, what we really saw was that there was a sort of the dominance of the United States, and that's changing now. And what the United States used to claim, hugely contested, of course, was that it was fighting for human rights in a particular way of life that was human rights based. We know for various reasons that often wasn't the case. We talk now about solidarity between partners in the South, but isn't it also true that China, just because of the sheer size of its economy, could become a sort of economic hegemon?
Well, which is why I emphasize the point that countries in the global South, regardless of their size, as countries or economies or even their military, must build dynamic capabilities such that they can negotiate mutual beneficial relations, whether they are trading with China or Indonesia or Malaysia or Brazil or any other country in the global South. It is important because at the end of the day, a country elects a particular trade deal. We are not forced to sign. We are not forced to do an infrastructure project. It's how you astutely negotiate that, being clear about what are the benefits of the country and what type of capabilities and what type of resources are you bringing from China, for an example. Of course, there is a natural order of things here, Stephen. China is the biggest, largest growing market in the world. It's a manufacturing powerhouse. It's got a comprehensive economy. Therefore, it is natural that it will end up trading with as many countries as it is trading with today. The challenge that we face is how do we build our capacity to negotiate trade deals, infrastructure financing deals that are in the best interest of the countries in the global South, because we are not forced about it. The fact that it could become an economic hegemony here, but we will measure how it uses that power to influence development in the global South. And what we see now, for an example, the recent announcement that was made on removing tariffs on about 100 products, you can see that then if you call it a hegemon, this is a hegemon that understands its responsibility in relation to how it supports countries in the global South to develop.
We're part of the African Union. We're part of BRICS, of course, one of the founding members of BRICS. Do you think those structures are going to be important? Can we use them as South Africa to achieve what we want, use those areas to sort of campaign for the world as we would like to see it?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. In fact, I was doing a reading, Stephen, of all the documents and outcome statements out of these forums. Interestingly, there is consistency in the aims and objectives, as well as the modalities for advancing the work of the EU, like Agenda 2063. If you look at what FOCAC is about, if you look at what BRICS is about, what ASEAN is about, and also some of the developments that are taking place in Latin America. This is useful in a sense that, which is what South Africa has done, by the way, even with the G20, where the president put at the center of it the development agenda, consistent with what was done by Brazil, what was done by Indonesia, India, and so on, that you put development at the center of the agenda. And so we can use this platform to change the order of things by centering development and not hegemony. In fact, sometimes we don't connect the dots. In South Africa, we have TVET college lecturers and students who are going for training in China, for an example, in TVET college institutions in China. If you were to connect the dots, that's exactly what was agreed at FOCAC. It's exactly what was agreed at BRICS. So it's interesting that there are commonalities or continuities between the objectives of this program, what is being agreed at these platforms, and what then actually happens on the ground. And of course, there's a lot more that must be done to communicate how then these have an effect on the people on the ground.
Professor, thank you. Professor Busani Ngcaweni is the director at the Center for Public Policy and African Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Really do appreciate that.